Hey guys, I'm going to just start today as we deal with the topic of fellowship and why the church needs it. Today's going to be more of a practical kind of look at fellowship, kind of the need for deeper fellowship. How do you develop that in the life of the church? It's going to be a little fun too. I've got some fun things to just think through. So when we think about the need for fellowship, and deeper fellowship. Typically, when we talk about fellowship, most of us here at the church, and when I say that is not necessarily Royal Palm specific where I pastor, but in terms of where we go to church, most of us, when we talk about fellowship often is just something that's kind of out there, and we think about fellowship time, or we think about meeting in the fellowship hall for a potluck or something like that. And so I would ask, and one of the things I want to look at is how do we create deeper fellowship, right? How do we go beyond that? So if you're not super plugged in, that's going to be super hard. At Royal Palms we have a strategy, and what we say is that you've kind of make it around the circle, so to speak. So we talk about you need to be involved with church. You be involved with the worship service together. We need to be listening to the same things, praying to the same kind of direction as those things come during prayer time, and we hear about what's going on in the life of the church. But another piece is involved with a growth group. Another piece is to serve. And after that is we say invite, which is to invite others to a relationship with Christ, to invite others to worship alongside with you. And so those are things that we want people to be doing. And I think as you do those, you're going to grow in fellowship. But most of the time, if we're not really plugged in, if really all you're doing is the growth, the being in part of worship. And today, I mean, it's becoming even trickier because now being involved with worship may mean I'm just watching. And that's not your fault. I mean, for some of you, you need to be home right now because of the way things are. You're high risk, or there's no, we're not able to bring kids back in just yet and have the teachers and the staff it the way we need to. And so we're just taking it easy. But when things are kind of generally back to normal, if all you're doing is hitting church time, how are you developing fellowship? Well, some of you might say, well, I wait until I talk to people, I see church people. I love this little article. Man stands perfectly still during church greeting time in an attempt to avoid detection. These, by the way, if you have never read these before, they come from the site Babylon Bee. So I'm going to have a little fun with these. I love reading the Babylon Bee. They usually have a lot of like little jabs at kind of churchy culture. And a lot of the time it's kind of accurate. So we'll look at a few of those today especially. But I mean, think about this. If you're only shooting to try to get to know people for the 15 minutes prior to service or right after, that's going to be a pretty difficult thing for you to do. Like I said, some of this stuff that I'm going to show you, if you've never gone to Babylon Bee, check them out. It's Christian satire. It's a lot of fun. But let's talk about realistically some ways to be involved and maybe deepen some fellowship, right? So we're not even going to talk about growth groups. We'll talk about that in just a second, but let's just talk about kind of realistically, how do I deepen my fellowship? Well, there's a couple things you can start to do to deepen your fellowship, and some of that is kind of comes right out of the text that we had seen. Remember, we saw that they were eating together. So one of the cool things you could even think about is just, why don't you just find somebody and make it a habit to go and to eat with people. That's a big deal. It does a lot to spend time and eat with people. Now, it's hard, depending on your stage of life, to be able to do this. So for instance, if you've got young kids, trying to do a meal with somebody, it can be tricky because you got nap times to think about, you got budget to think about. But you know what? I think that's worth budgeting into your schedule. It's worth budgeting into your life, into your schedule, to make time for church people, and so to go out. Now, this should not be just the people you already know. I mean, think about that. You should be trying to find new people, especially if there's somebody brand new. That's a great way to welcome them in too, is you get to talk to them for a few minutes. You've noticed you've never seen them before, and then just say, hey, would you guys like to go out? Do you want to go out and eat together? And so you could do that. Now, for some of you, maybe you have the means to even kind of invite and pay for somebody to go. In that case, you might want to go somewhere a little cheaper. But if not, there's no harm in just say, hey, you guys want to go and try to go eat together and go somewhere. But there's places like that around the church always. Everybody's got the stories of where we used to go and how those places change. But make that a priority to go out with somebody. Try to do that periodically. Build that into your budget. It goes a long way to eat with people. Another one to look at is just block time in your schedule to meet with people. Think about this. A lot of time we say, hey, I just don't have time. That is the most common excuse for everything. I just don't have time right now. You know what? It's time to make a little time for people. Think about your monthly calendar. Why don't you do this? Look at your calendar, right? And, if you're married, talk with your spouse about what's a night or two during the month. Just 2, the whole month. You're going to start baby steps. Go with 1, that we can say, let's make this a night to have somebody over, or that we're going to make sure that we try to go out with this group to kind of get to know them better, spend more time. That should be built in. And if you don't build it in, it's never going to happen. We all know this. We know that if we don't just make time or build something into the schedule, it's never going to happen. Now, some of you guys you fly by the seat of your pants, and that's great. But a lot of people, we need a little planning. We need a little bit of extra to do. So I would just say, build that into your schedule, and there's no harm in texting somebody you never hung out with a lot at church, or seeing them on Sunday. Say, hey, would you like to go in 2 weeks together? That happens too. That goes a long way. And so those are all little things. And like I said, remember in the text it says that they were going from home to home. They were sharing meals together. That's a big deal, and I think that helps a lot. Another thing you do is just pray for increased fellowship. I love this comes from 1 Thessalonians 3:12. And may the Lord cause you to increase and overflow with love for one another and for everyone, just as we do for you. You can't discount the ability for God to just add people into your life by praying. Sometimes we say, well, I don't have any friends. I don't know any new people here. And part of that might be just because you haven't really prayed about it. I'm not super connected. There's nobody here for me anymore. And that happens. Everyone's got that. But part of that should be kind of this. First off, you need to be praying. Are you actively praying for God to bring people your way to fellowship with? That's something that even we have to do, even on staff, because we all need people. We all need close relationships as well. But are you praying for increased fellowship for you? Are you praying for that to appear in the church? That's a huge deal to be praying for that. But then there needs to be put some legs to that too, is make the time, We all want to say, oh, I don't have this or I don't have that. Pray for it, and then now make those plans and watch what God will do as you pray for it. So I would just say too, whether you're at Royal Palms or ever church, just pray that God would increase that as people get to know each other and to get to spend time, and that God would increase the fellowship amongst the body. Now, I think really one of the best things that we can do, and we're really trying to get better at this, is do a growth group. If you've been at Royal Palms long enough, you've heard me hammer the need for growth groups and how you need to be involved, especially right now, when the fact that we can barely meet with each other. We're talking about online growth groups. Now, those aren't ideal. And I know for some of you, I've even heard some of you say, well, I just can't do the online thing. I get that. Hopefully, we're getting to a stage where we can get back into kind of meeting together. And so in the meantime, maybe you can just meet someone in public somewhere for a restaurant and start with small on a family to family. But I think the next best step will be to take that, to go and get involved with a growth group. We've been talking about, we want to be in groups with people that are older than us and different cultural backgrounds, different age, different race, different community, different culture, and all of that together. We want to do that and be able to try to hammer out living out this life together. But when you go to a growth group, this is what we say about growth groups at Royal Palms. We say this is a small group where you can grow in God's Word and in relationships with others in the church. One of the things that is so important, reason we call them growth groups, and what you're going to see in the next few slides is small groups, the way that's generically termed, but at Royal Palms we deem them called growth groups because the point of what we think these groups should be doing is growing in knowledge of God and growing in relationships with others. That's what we want. See, a lot of time when we think about Bible study or discipleship at church, we focus only kind of one-dimensionally on Bible study. And so you could potentially be in a class and have everybody around you, but you don't really know them. I mean, you know them because you have coffee with them or you have a donut in the morning because you sit at the same table. But do you actually have a relationship? Have you grown with these people? Are you spending time with these people and know who they are and have a stronger, deeper relationship with them the more times you do Bible study together? So that's something that we're working on too, is we're trying to make these groups, in everything we do, we're wanting to make groups to where we have maximized the potential for you to grow in life with each other. You know, you'll see, and we've seen there have been some very strong groups like this in the past where God has knit people together and all sorts of different backgrounds, but they've been knit together and there's a love and a bond that has occurred. It's been the grace of God to do that. And that's what we want to see happen across the board. We want Christians who come to our church to say, I'm going to come and I'm going to take the step beyond just knowledge and income.